everyone. First of all, we will start. Each person will talk about the positive, negative things in the videos, the similarities, differences, and we'll give the recommendation. And the order will be me, Matt, Andrew, Claire, and Janet. So for the first video, which is in school video, I saw a lot of negative things in this video. First of all, the teacher did not greet his students, and the seatings were no appropriate seats. Each student were sitting on his own. Their legs were on the tables. So there's no like classroom management, no norms for these seatings, things for the students. And also when the teachers gave the first activity, he did not set any time for it, but he catch up with the last activity. He said that students, you have 20 minutes. But all of these activity before this 20 minutes were with no times, no time limit, no timers. He was jumping around with these between the students and give him some small instructions. So there were no clear instruction about the activity, nor the time for each activity. So I guess the teacher should set some norms and the expectations for the students, because there was no like strict norms about how to sit properly, how to enter the class, how to greet students. And I also saw some students leaving the class without even permission. So this is quite not a positive learning environment, because the students were on their own there. They weren't focusing well with the teacher. So those are my things that I saw, and he needs to set his norms with the teachers. What's academic honesty, norms, behavior, expectations, rules, classroom rules. So those I saw that they were missing. For the online thing, it was better, a little bit better. The teacher gave clear instruction, asked students questions, and they were answering. But concerning the chat and the mic, the students prefer to just answer via chat box and not open their mics. So this is should be clear in the norms classrooms, especially for an online environment, that the students should use their mic to answer and not only use the chat box. And also their camera weren't on. So we have 4 to 5 students with on cameras, and the rest were turning off their cameras. So just the teacher should has clear instruction for these cameras and use consistency, because when he told them to open their mics and talk, directly he looked at the chat box and read the answer of the students. So he should be consistent with his rules. Open the mics and speak. The student should open their mics and speak. Open the cams. He should repeat it every time to open their cams. So those are small recommendations for the online environment and the school, online and school videos. So thank you.
Okay, super. Thanks, Fawad. Some comments from me first about the in-person class. A couple positives. One of the things the teacher said that at the beginning is he said, no wrong answers, write what you know. And I like that as being a bit of an icebreaker and a bit of a way of telling the students, like, it's okay if you succeed, don't worry about failing. We are all here to learn together. But similar to what was already said, I think that maybe the management of the classroom led some things to be desired. The teacher did a good job moving around the room. He didn't sit down, so that was positive. But the discussion and the way the class run was always very teacher-centric. There wasn't much going on between the students. Maybe there was some group work that we didn't see in another lesson, but for this, it was extremely teacher-centric, which we kind of want to have some of, but move away from a little bit. I think that the actual topic of the lesson, and I know this is kind of hard, was not extremely engaging, but there's not a whole lot that can be done about that. One thing that I noticed he didn't do very much of at all, or it was hard to tell, is it didn't look like he used the smartboard. It looked like something was up on the smartboard, but it didn't look like he ever referred to it or used it in a way that was part of the classroom or part of the engagement. So that would be some of my recommendations there, is to definitely try and use those tools that are available. Moving on to the online class. Wow, I mean, this teacher does, I totally sympathize with how that class was run, because it sounded a lot like some of the classes that I have tried to run recently, where you're trying to be enthusiastic, you're trying to be engaging, and you're like, knock, knock, is anybody out there? Because the students are maybe half asleep, or they're not putting on their microphone, or in some cases, even their cameras. He did do a good job at welcoming the students when they came in, greeting them by name. The teacher was very clear, very easy to understand. And he did do a good job of kind of targeting the discussion when the students were throwing out ideas for the Venn diagram of what they were going to compare. Okay, well, let's just narrow it down to 2 foods, as opposed to things that were totally different. So I did like that. The teacher also did have a very good command of technology, about using the video editing tools, about using the PowerPoint and the different slides and the different things, making words pop up. So I did like that. So I give him props for doing his best to try and engage. I would have some suggestions, but my gosh, it's really been difficult with online learning. So I think that he did as good a job as he could have done. I think maybe the one thing I could say is at the beginning of class, maybe set some norms or expectations about how much participation is expected from the students. So that's what I have to add for those videos. And next we have Andrew.
Hello, thank you. Yeah, so for the physical and online, I was able to find a similarity that I thought was kind of interesting, is that um, I thought that the teachers, they had in developing their learning environment, they kind of had this enthusiasm that you could kind of see there, but they didn't quite do a great job of putting that into their classroom, right? You could, especially the guy that did the physical one, he certainly seemed like he had some enthusiasm about his topic, but you just couldn't quite see it come through. I think that both of them could have given the students a little bit more enthusiasm, with a little bit more organized and intentional beginning of their classes. Maybe some visuals, some examples, maybe just an example of their own work or their own thoughts that they could have used to share with the kids, that might have created a more positive and enthusiastic learning environment throughout the classroom, rather than just with the teacher. For the physical classroom, I was kind of excited at first when I noticed the guy standing at the door and giving people instructions as they came in. And I thought, okay, this is good. He must have like procedures set up where the kids are going to come into the door and they're going to get some small instruction from him, and they're going to sit down and get to work. But I think that it became clear after a few minutes that that procedure wasn't quite set up. And so I think that he had a really great idea to do that, and a good intention to do that. But what I would recommend is to spend a little bit more time teaching that procedure and preparing that procedure, so that the students know a little bit more about what's expected of them. And I think that was even shown by the way that he kept repeating his instructions over and over again. Fuad actually even said that he didn't give a timer. And I could be mistaken about this, but I thought I heard him say that they had 10 minutes to do it. I thought that he did give a time, but then by the end of it, I looked at when he started to ask students for their feedback. I looked and it was only 5 minutes. So he didn't actually give them the full 10 minutes that he said he would. So that, along with maybe it wasn't seen in the video, maybe it was edited out, but that, along with the fact that it didn't seem like they ever had an opportunity to discuss their thoughts with a partner or with a group and try to cement their thoughts in their mind, I thought that it kind of made the class discussion lacking. And that would be another way to increase the enthusiasm, is to give students more of an opportunity to share on their classmates' thoughts and ideas. For the online, I'll quickly say I thought that not only did the teacher in the online learning not have much of a procedure, but the way that it was edited was kind of strange in that you couldn't see how he transitioned from instruction or input to student work time to feedback. So even if he did have the procedure, we didn't really see it in the way that it was edited. So yeah, it's hard to really judge too much about the procedure, but from what we saw, I didn't really see anything. He did have a couple of norms, cameras on, and share your answers with your voice. I think that's good, especially with a class like that where there's not a lot of participation. It's good that he was um, consistent with his norm of sharing your answers with your voice rather than just typing it into the chat. And so I'll kick it over to Claire now.
Okay, thanks. I'm setting my timer for myself. So yes, for the in-person class, I too was a little bit, I guess I'll start out by saying some of the positives. I do agree with a lot of what you were saying. So I think that at first he did announce that what I heard was that he announced there were 5 minutes for the task for them to write down everything that they knew about the terms. And I think that I think those terms were on the smartboard. So I thought that it might not have been super interactive, or he might not have been very tech heavy with using the smartboard, but I thought that the terms they were supposed to be writing about were presented on the board. The way I heard it was that the students had 5 minutes to write, and then they would share for 5 minutes. So I don't think that he posted a timer, but I remember him, kind of announcing that expectation. And so I thought that that was good, though I could be wrong. Maybe he promised them 10 minutes and didn't give it. But I do remember him kind of repeating that. And I thought that, the fact that he set up the activity by telling them, if you stay focused on task, then you'll get this grade or this score. And then you'll also get candy on your way out of class. So I too, when he started, I was like, okay, he seems enthusiastic and he seems like he has some procedures in place. He then also, another positive, I do remember him giving like an expectation for the transition for them to go pick up their laptops. Something else positive about the work itself was that I think it was Matt who said it, but the students had to start by just kind of writing down everything they knew. And then they went on to doing research about that term or that subject. So I thought that it was good to, to start with that, but then to then use, to then do research. And he was giving them search engines to use. And as we know, like doing research is very much a 21st century skill that all students are going to need. So I thought that that was at least positive. I agree, though, there was a lack of interactivity between students. I think it would have really bolstered the environment and their understanding if they'd been able to work in partners or work in groups. And I did also notice some of the kind of having their feet up on the, on the furniture, or some of the classroom management did seem to be lacking in all the other ways that you guys have described. So I agree with you there. One other last positive for the in-person, I did notice when students were sharing, he would prompt them with follow-up questions like, can you give a specific example, or can you apply that to something that's going on today? So I thought that that was good, despite some of the other deficiencies that we saw. And I'm right up on time. So for the online class, I agree with you, Matt. It's really hard. As we've seen, it's like pulling teeth to get students to interact in the online environment. And I thought that said, like, it started out positively. He asked how students, weekends went, how the start of their spring is. But yeah, he got only a few thumbs up, and then students weren't really speaking up or sharing much other than in the chat for the rest of the lesson. So I thought that that could have, a norm or an expectation of how much, verbal participation would be necessary. And I too thought the transitions were abrupt. I don't know if it was the video editing or his course, but yeah, that would be my critique. So I'm out of time. I will move on to Jeanette.
Okay, hi everyone. I will start with the classroom video. I tend to, what I observed overall between both videos, I agree with AJ when he said that he has procedures but didn't follow through with them all the way, and that's what I feel like I saw at the beginning of both classes. and throughout in the online class. In the classroom video, the teacher greeted the students at the door, but left that post, and then the rest of the students were trickling in. So he started out well, but didn't finish it to the end. Granted, there were a lot of students coming in late as well. The thing that really bothered me about the classroom video was that I felt like the teacher used plain old flat out bribery to motivate students. He said, if you finish this, I will give you candy and some other credit and 4 points or something like that. And he used that to motivate them to complete the task rather than having some intrinsic motivation. Um, and that really, really bothered me. And he kept on reminding them throughout the class, I'll give you candy, I'll give you candy. He said it many times. And I think setting up proper norms would mitigate that and really motivate students to do the work for their own sake and for learning, and really bringing to the forefront the value of learning rather than getting these rewards. Um, Another thing I noticed was that the consequences were not clear. One example was when a student pulled out the phone and the teacher asked them to put it away or else or something like that. It would have been better if he just followed the consequences in order. Well, usually it's a verbal warning and stated explicitly, you have a verbal warning, but he said, come on, you know better than that, and put it away. And that was just very unclear. Um, Also, at the end, I noticed there's no procedure for returning computers or ending the class. Granted, he didn't finish the activity um, on time, but having some sort of ending or where they're going to finish or complete the task at the end in the next class. Positives, I saw that the teacher was able to get the late students informed and on the task, so he made sure that they were ready as they were arriving in late. There was a group of students, I noticed. And then also, when the activity was well defined, is the research part with the computer, the students seemed to be pretty good at staying on task and doing the research and really engaged in listening to what other people had to say. So I thought that was a positive. Moving to the online class, the I didn't feel like the teacher followed through on the procedures that he had. He started greeting people upon arrival, and then I think he agreed to like 5 names, but then stopped after that. And there were more students in the class. But I think lacking that personal connection with the students at the beginning of class, I think just set himself up for failure for the rest of the class, because um, the students didn't really feel a need to engage in the class if they weren't acknowledged. Um, Also, I felt like the teacher had low expectations for students because because they all did not show their faces. Their foreheads were the only things that showing, and looking off to the side from the computer, um, clearly doing their own thing, and the teacher let that go. And so um, having the low expectations uh, seemed like the norm for the class. It's a negative norm, but it was a norm nonetheless that was set. Some positive was that he he used the technology well, like Matt was saying. And some suggestions I would say for the online class is to reboot the class. It was the first class after a long spring break, and to reestablish norms and procedures again. And it was clear that the students didn't have any agreed upon norms. Also, maybe by improving engagement would be to use interactive games like Kahoots or Booklet that we were using, rather than going around and filling in the blank, which could be quite tedious for the students. And that's it for me.